You know what, guys? I think it's about time for this brony to do his first MLP review. Roll the intro. I think it's pretty obvious that the brony community is one of the strangest things in animation history. I mean, Friendship is Magic wasn't even very popular until someone wrote an article lambasting it purely for being toy-based. Ironically, it was this article, designed to turn people away from the show, which became the genesis of the fandom. It's also important to mention that most of the initial members of this community, a community based largely on genuine camaraderie, were from 4chan of all places. So, why did such an unlikely event take place? What about a show from the My Little Pony franchise could have possibly been good enough to spark such interest? There's only one way to find out. Let's take a look at an early episode, A Dog and Pony Show. The episode starts with a celebrity coming into Rarity's shop to find some new outfits. She sees a bejeweled suit and asks for several in several different colors, which means Rarity needs to find more gems. It's a decent setup, but aside from some impressive voice acting, there's not much to talk about. Anyway, Rarity goes to a quarry with Spike to find more gems. All the while, Rarity talks about the virtues of a lady.
Spike, a lady is never jealous. Of course not. But were you totally flipping out or what? Ladies do not flip out, Spike.
This episode is largely focused on portraying Rarity as actually having some depth to her personality. As the fashionista on a show meant for little girls, it would be very easy for her to be the shallowest character in the series, so this episode is trying to prevent that. So they start digging up the jewels with a few visual gags. Rarity gives Spike one of the jewels because Spike is a dragon, and dragons like to eat jewels, and then...
Yes, gems, gems, precious gems. It's not the dragon we want, it's the pony.
Gollum in dog form appears, I guess. These are the Diamond Dogs, and they want gems. Since Rarity is good at finding gems, they attack her, giving us a few more visual gags, then capture her and vanish down a hole. Spike grabs the rest of the main 6 to help rescue Rarity, but when they arrive back at the quarry, they see that the holes have multiplied. We get a fun sequence of them trying and failing to get into one, and then they imagine Rarity being grossed out by the dirt. Now, it's actually really smart what the writers did here. They're setting up Rarity as being a helpless girly girl stereotype so that they can subvert it later. The main 6 try and fail to dig out the holes in another fun sequence, and then we get another imagined scene with Rarity. Spike spots a hole which conveniently hasn't been filled in, and decides to use the jewel Rarity gave him to attract some of the dogs. It's a bit contrived, but I suppose it's not that big of a deal. Then we get a third imagined scene with Rarity, which is over the top and hilarious. Once again, they're setting up the expectation of the cliché girly character in order to subvert it. Something grabs the gem, and they all get pulled into the hole. One interesting sequence later, and they end up in the dog's lair. This episode has a lot of fun little visual sequences in it, and it works pretty well. It allows a simple plot to be extended to 22 minutes without it getting boring. Twilight mimics Rarity's gem-finding spell to help them search for her, and then we cut to actual Rarity with the Diamond Dogs. I cannot stress this enough. This scene is just absolutely delightful. Basically, the dogs try to make Rarity find gems, and she does so while being as annoying as possible.
Damp, it's going to wreak havoc on my mane. And you look and smell like you haven't bathed in weeks. Have you never heard of a soap? And that's another thing. I would appreciate it if you'd stop calling me Pony. I am a lady, and I wish to be addressed as such.
Enough! You're whining! It hurts!
Whining? I am not whining. I am complaining.
This scene works because Rarity is annoying the dogs, not the audience. Also, the dogs deserve it since they kidnapped her. It's so funny that I don't even want to spoil any more of it. The rest of the main 6 find the room where Rarity is being kept and get ambushed by some of the guards. After another fun sequence, the dogs just let Rarity go. Literally, she annoyed them so much that they just let her go, gems and all. Also, it turns out Rarity was intentionally annoying the dogs so that they would let her leave. Thus, we learned that not only can a seemingly stereotypical character still hold their own, but she can go far beyond what the stereotype might limit her to. Now, if that's not a metaphor for Friendship is Magic as a whole, I don't know what is. Honestly, I don't think this episode is one of the best of the show, but it's certainly a lot of fun. There's a lot to like about this one. The animation does a lot of neat stuff, there's some strong characterization, and the plot is pretty sound. It's an enjoyable episode, and it represents a lot of what makes the show great. It subverts expectations. If Friendship is Magic didn't have such skilled writers working on it, this episode could have easily been a cliché, stereotypical story about a cliché, stereotypical character. Instead, we get something that's genuinely fun. I give this episode 3.5 out of 4 stars. Not much else to say here.